So, welcome to the first episode. I am joined by Richard Williams. I've known Richard for about coming up 2 years, worked together ever since really I started Search Stack. And we've just instantly clicked, done multiple projects together. And I couldn't think of anyone better to bring on for the first episode of the Skill Point podcast. So Welcome, Richard. I won't big you up anymore. I'll let you do it yourself.
No pressure.
Could you just give everyone a bit of an introduction about yourself, your experience, and anything else you feel is relevant?
Oh God, my experience. We might be here all day if I tell that story. Let me give you the nutshell. I was sales director in a digital agency for about 5 or 6 years. My job was to go and sell big projects, websites, strategy to all sorts of companies, but with like a real commercial edge to it. So I worked with loads of cool companies like ITV Studios, Williams F1, PlayStation, that's sort of the world that I was in, and I absolutely loved it. I then left the agency. It must have been after about 5 years. And weirdly enough, I came across a head of marketing role for a recruitment company. And I'd technically never done marketing, but I saw it by chance on LinkedIn, and I thought to myself, that's actually a client brief. That's not a job spec. And so I weirdly applied for it and said, hey, I think I know what you want. I think you need X, Y, and Z. I think this is how you do it. Just wondering if you'd be interested in a sort of an out of the box chat. And they rang me that day and said, this is crazy. Our owner told us that he would love us to go out and find someone that was ex-sales, a little less marketing than normal, someone that had a bit of a commercial edge to them and sort of knew this industry. And I was hired the next day. So suddenly I've thrown into a head of marketing role, shitting myself a bit, to be honest, because I'd never done it before and didn't even know if I could do it. And but actually I could. And I realized that 5 years of selling marketing had taught me marketing, and away we went. And so I became the head of marketing for a company called BPS. They're predominantly an RPO, and had a real fun time with those guys over a couple of years, rebranded them, built out their website, won a recruitment website of the year at the Recruitment Awards, picked up a few RPOs along the way, and then I was headhunted to work for Austin Fraser. So I became their global head of marketing. Bigger job, different challenges in the sense, a different breadth of challenge in the sense that they were 4 times the size across 3 different regions, Germany, US, and UK. But ultimately the same problem that I'd encountered in the last place, which was marketing's never worked for us. We don't even like our website. We never use it. This is a total build from the ground up job. And by the way, no one has any faith in marketing. So good luck with that. And that was basically my welcome to the company chat that I had with Pete, the CEO. Did that for 3 years. Loads of fun projects there. Rebranded them. We built the website in-house, which was a fun one. We created Austin Vita, their sister company, from scratch, including the name, put a community strategy in place, and this long story is coming to an end. I got to lockdown, very strange one, but wrote a bucket list, had a midlife crisis, worked out that I could actually paint. So paintings, if you're watching this, you can see behind me. I'd never painted before in my life, but it was just something that I'd always been interested in. I sort of did one. It was quite good. I then did another one, and someone said, hey, I'll buy that off you. And the rest was history. And so I left my job, took up art, but at the same time wanted to keep my head in the marketing game. So I started a marketing consultancy, working with recruitment companies, basically outsourced marketing director, working with them in sort of short sprints to turn around and from brand and all the stuff that I'd done in a previous life at Austin Fraser and BPS, but just as a service. And that's sort of effectively where I've landed. And the marketing has massively taken over the painting. So I'm hardly ever painting anymore, but wouldn't have it any other way. I absolutely love it. The end.
I love it. Perfect. A wealth of experience. Love it.
I don't know about that, but it's been quite a journey, quite quick.
No, fantastic. I think what we'll talk about, we discussed some questions beforehand, didn't we? And I think I really want to break into branding, brand strategy with you, communities, empowering consultants, things that we've kind of discussed and worked together and pitched before in tandem. But really, from your intro, I've got a couple of questions I wanted to sort of ask you. The first being, with your arts, do you find that influences your actual like business design thinking? Do they go hand in hand, or you just keep them completely separate?
No, I mean, when I worked in the digital agency many moons ago, I was the guy who I didn't have in theory. Actually, it's quite a good life lesson, really. Back then, I'd have said I don't have a creative bone in my body. I'm a salesman. All I know is sales. And so what I would do, and people will vouch for this, is I would stand behind the designers and watch what they were doing, and I was in awe. Like I'd have done that for free. I was fascinated by how they were manipulating things in Photoshop, and I'd give them a slide that I tried to create and be quite creative, and they'd absolutely pull it apart and turn it into something amazing. And I was just absolutely in awe of these guys. And so I clearly had a fascination with creativity, but didn't really know how to express it. Then I got into marketing, and I found that I was actually had a real keen eye for it and could understand what a good brand looks like and why it should look like that. And I started releasing that sort of urge to create through brand. And so, then it naturally evolved into, cool, well, I'm a creative now. So why don't I try some of the other stuff around and see what, and I realized, so I sort of almost like fell into it. So I would actually say, no, it was the journey that influenced the art, not the art that influences what I do now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I was quite similar to you. I was going to go into do graphic design, and then realised the money wasn't amazing, so I went for marketing instead.
Yeah, I mean, there was that.
It's the whole thing that if you can tell between a shit and a good design, you've just got that eye. You can say, look, that looks crap. That is literally the foundation of a good graphic designer. And if you've kind of got that eye to see whether that looks really bad or not, then you're in that sort of mindset compared to you, because a vast majority of the public will not see the difference between a good and a shit design, unfortunately.
So it's something you definitely take for granted. I mean, I get laughed at, but I kick off a lot of brand projects and designs in Keynote, which is like the Apple equivalent of PowerPoint. And the reason I use Keynote is I've worked out through years of creating presentations and proposals that I can actually just about butcher like a logo together or a design or something. And so I'm like this frustrated creative who I know what it is I'm trying to do, but I actually can't execute it through something like the world that is Photoshop, for example. And that thing is just insane. I look at all the buttons and I'm just, where do you even start with this? I'm not trained in it. But I know what I want. I don't have the tools, but I'm able to sort of get half of the way there and pass it to someone and they can execute. So, which is effectively what I do now and have done now for a very long time. It's just that I start things off. I've got the vision for it. I can put down a real good creative brief of palettes. I can concepts together, but I'll give it to someone and they'll just execute. And so, one of the reasons I work with you, another reason I work with Louis, my business partner, is because I find people who are great at taking an idea and making it happen. So I'm the ideas guy. I am creative, but I can't quite execute. But yeah, people like you, for example, can. So that's why I work with you guys, and that's why it works.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions I think I'll ask you towards the end, but one that really struck out to me is when you first said about you moved over to that company, that the job role looked more like a client brief, and that really just struck a chord with me that there's a big conversation going on at the moment that you need to be like a media agency within your business, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand. So I would just put it to you: what do you think your thoughts on this kind of topic is? Because I know we've had this discussion before.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be where I was now if I didn't have that point of view 3 years ago. Let me give you an example. Now, this is going to go against what I do now. When I worked for Austin Fraser, I had a real mistrust of agencies. Why? Because I'd worked for one. I knew how they operated. I knew that they were there to drive margins, to spend as little time as possible on something for the biggest revenue that would generate, right? So I believe in marketing and creativity. it's really difficult to come up with an amazing end product if you're thinking in that way. I understand why they do. They've got to make money. They're a business. Why am I saying that? It's because I've been there and I've sold it, and I realized what that world was like. So suddenly I become a head of marketing. I'm the client, and I'm thinking, well, shit, I know how they've quoted that. I know what I'm going to get back for it. And when I joined Austin Fraser, I inherited a couple of agencies, and they were just delivering stuff, and I was just thinking, this is so below par. There's no soul gone into this. There's no real love or thinking. You're just churning stuff out. And I turned around to Pete, the owner, and I said to him, I just think we need to build a little mini marketing team, like a little mini marketing agency within our company. And here are the reasons why I think we need to do it. One, no one will love our brand like we will. Two, we're not being driven by the desire for profit. So we can spend time on things and we can make sure that we get them right. And three, once we're set up and we're all singing and dancing, you could probably use us to make money because we can work for your clients and we can start giving you real value add within the company. And so that's what we did. And as a result, we built Austin Vita from scratch, name, identity, website, and we just outsourced to some developers to knock up the actual site. We did the same with Austin Fraser. We built that entire. I mean, I still think the Austin Fraser site is one of the nicest sites I've been a part of. I think it works well. It's got great UX. Well, I know it converts because it does 6 figures a month in terms of revenue. So yeah, we did that in-house. All we did was give it to Volcanic, and we handed it over to them and say, hey, here's the designs, go put that on your platform. And so I completely agree with you. I think it doesn't have to be a team of 10 in your marketing department. If you've got a great designer, someone who gets strategy, and someone who can get things done, a team of 3 will do absolute wonders for you. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think there's the hybrid approach to working with an agency. You've got, just for the devil's advocate side of it, that you do have the experts, say we're working someone like me or you that, had that experience with a load of other companies in the same sector and seeing what's working. But I think you need boots on the ground, people within the business that love your business just as much as you do, that are able to sort of utilize the best out of the agency, but also sort of push projects forward. And I think that sort of that methodology of having both together is really the winning way.
But utilizing experts to execute, right?
Yeah.
So I don't believe you will build an incredible brand within your business if you do not have a creative in your business. A designer, a good creative.
And that can be like a co-founder or a CEO. I've come across many that are like really creative in their mindset.
But a good creative in your business is a superpower. It's like a differentiator. It's that person that sat there in a room and listens to a product you're talking about, and 2 days later they're handing you like a brochure that sort of maps it out visually and has thought about the process and breaking it down, and you've got something really nicely designed. And they've also come up with a name, and that name really sits well. And just having someone that can do that sort of thing just kicks your business on tenfold, rather than having to go out, write a brief, bring someone up to speed with your business before they even get to grips with the brief that you're talking about. They then go and get it wrong 5 times. You have to work with I think it's a superpower, and that's why I've always done what I've done. And that's why my business model right now is I work with less recruitment companies, but I sort of bake myself into them and my team. So it's almost like we sort of almost become your marketing department for the time period that we get there, because we need to love your business like you love your business. And it sounds cheesy, but if you want the best outcomes from your marketing, that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, I know that, obviously we do the same sort of thing, but there's plenty of agencies out there, and I think the one that, and if you go with any agency, you want to join up with the ones that sit down with you and genuinely get excited about your business and what you want to do and come up with ideas and fresh faced. And I think that will be the way that you find the one that really benefits your business.
And also, by the way, it's on agencies to say, I'm not inspired by your business.
Yes, absolutely. Right?
Yeah. And not many people do it because they see the dollar signs.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go into branding, because personally, from my perspective, I think that the most important pillar of any business is reputation. And then that goes down into a really good fucking product and then actually really good branding around the product as well at the same time. So I think that core part of branding is something that fascinates me. There's so much to learn. I'm only scratching the surface, and I'm sure a lot of other people are. And it's not just a buzzword; it's an actual process, and it's a thought that really breaks down your company, doesn't it, and makes it stand out in a seriously busy market these days. So I think the first question I would definitely ask is, what does branding actually mean to you?
I think the best way, I actually do love that cheesy saying. It's what people say about you when you left the room.
Yeah.
I love that. It's cheese, but I love it. I actually think branding to me, lots of people make the mistake of branding being a logo or a color palette, or, what your website looks like. I think it's what you stand for and where you're going. I haven't really seen that said much, but I guess that's probably because of the way that I work. So it is very rare that I will work with a client where we don't start from ground zero. Even if they tell me we've got stuff, we don't need a new identity. We don't need to look at our messaging. I will look at it and I will absolutely poo-poo it 90% of the time. Not because they haven't done good work and they don't believe in what they're doing. It's just they probably haven't followed the process correctly. So to answer your question, like literally what I think branding looks like, because I think starting at ground zero means your brand architecture. So every great brand I ever saw in the world had a mission, a purpose, and a vision, right? So let's start with the purpose. Is the why are we even doing what we're doing? And it isn't about commercial gain. It's not about growth. It's what's that one thing compelling us to get out of bed every morning and do what we do. And that can be a superpower in itself. The vision is, okay, cool. We know why we're getting out of bed. The vision is, what is it we're looking to achieve? What does the world look like when we're done, right? And that's this is a strange thing to say because you're never done. So that vision should be quite lofty and it should be something you're never going to achieve. It's that North Star that you're rowing towards. And then the mission is, how are we going to do it? What makes us different? What are the processes? What are the things that we need to put in place to achieve this purpose and this vision, right? So I think that is so compelling. But there's a process that you've got to go through. What it isn't is, hey, Rich, we need a mission, purpose, vision. Can you have a little look at us and come up with one? I could, but it wouldn't be right. What it has to do is come from within. So a typical process would be that the leaders all need input and need time spent with them. You need to analyze the market, their marketing, their collateral, their proposals. What are they doing? You then need to probably survey the entire company. And what you then do is you get all of this information and you start to distill that down into messaging. And what's important about that as a process is people have been involved. It's come from within. So it's not, so when you turn around to them and said, hey, I heard you say this, and this is what I've distilled it down to, and actually I think it's this, it's very, very easy to get buy-in from around the company because they played a part in it, if that makes sense. So the reason I start there is I believe that any brand needs to hang off of these statements. So a solid mission, purpose, vision, and sort of the values and behaviors that hang off of them will then impact things like how you talk. They'll impact what you say on your website. They might even impact your service proposition. They'll impact the way your logo is designed, because we believe in this, so our logo looks like this, and everything ties in together. And what that does is then become a bit of a guiding light for any time that you do want to be creative or run a campaign. You know where it comes from. It comes from more than just a good idea in a boardroom. It's, hey, this is what we believe in, so this is why we're doing this. And it is a superpower. And I know I've said that already, but it really is. And if done correctly, and if your company buy into it, as I've seen, and this happened at Austin Fraser, the growth that we were able to attribute off of going through this process was just insane. It becomes that sort of glue that binds the company together and realizes that there's more to this than just recruitment. There's more to this than just making money. Actually, we've got a bit of a reason for why we're getting out of bed, and it's that value add.
Absolutely. And how do you make the fine line between it being a bit too wishy-washy? I know I completely agree with you. The mission where you want to go. And I think a lot of companies, especially in the recruitment industry, they really need to lean on the fact that they want to change the industry in some meaningful way. But it can sometimes get a little bit, especially if they want to do it themselves, can get a little bit wishy-washy, can get a little bit too pie in the sky. How do you sort of ground it back down to reality?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the important part is I personally think a good mission, purpose, vision should be quite fluffy and should be quite broad, because it has to encompass an awful lot of stuff, an awful lot of people, and it has to be has to have the breadth that allows you to pivot and maneuver in different directions. You're right. The key is a strong leadership team taking that and turning that into something that's executional and actually makes sense to, say, a consultant, you know. And so, there's a big job that happens after marketing of sort of left the room, or they might even stay in the room, where is, well, actually, what does this mean to us? And how do we use these principles to guide behaviors? And, you know, and how do we use these principles to guide sort of the way in which we write our strategy and where we're going? Yeah, you're totally right. But I think it always starts quite broad to begin with. If you're just left looking at a sheet of paper and here are our statements, as long as it doesn't say we're changing the world, because no, 0.0001% of companies are changing the world, but everyone seems to want to say they do it. Then you have to then translate that into everyday life.
And I know a lot of the input comes internally, and I think that's great because it influences the culture and how people think and communicate. Was super important. But how do you make your brand resonate with the end customer?
That's a really good question. You don't. We've just all been through the happy stuff and we love it. That's all that matters. I think you have to take the customer into consideration through part of the process, right? So when I do it, we start internally. This is what we feel, and then depending on the timeline and the time that we've got. I mean, this is where time comes into it. Right. If I'm being really driven by sort of cost and time, then we do this happy clappy, we're changing the world. You know, we've got some statements. They make us feel warm and fuzzy inside. Here we go. But we don't do hey, let's action this with some of our clients and our candidates and see what their feedback is. Let's see what this means to them. Let's see why they do business with us. What I tend to do as part of my process to answer that question is that before I distill down, I tend to survey a selection of clients and candidates. And so what I'm effectively looking for is leadership says this, workforce says this, clients and candidates say this. And I'm actually looking for the common themes that you can pull out together, because I think you're right. If you only do these two, leadership are going to say you're changing the world. These guys down here are going to say that's a bit wanky. That's not really what we're doing, but this is what we're actually doing. But you actually haven't got the people that matters opinion. So yeah, it's always those three pillars that I would always make sure that I'm hitting, and therefore you're able to write statements that actually motivate the people that you want to motivate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we do marketing with clients, one of the big things we always say is like the qualitative research, actually picking up the phone to clients and candidates and saying, what's keeping you up at night? You know, why did you choose us and things like that? And when you've got those answers, it makes all of your marketing a million times easier, because you can just then distill everything and you're not, throwing spaghetti at the wall and making sure it sticks. You know what you're doing. So I think, if you marry it all with a brand architecture as well, then you're in for a winning strategy, really, to take you forward.
The way I see it is when you're going through this process, which I think is the most important part of the entire process. If you don't get this right, or if you don't even do it, then the rest is just you're never going to have the sort of the strength or the power behind it to really compel. But the way I look at it is like the leaders get you the input from the leaders gets you excited. The workforce tells you how it really is, and then you've got the clients and the candidates that sort of provide the motivation. So you add those three together and you've got some really compelling stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think the next thing I'd love to talk to you about is communities. I think even since my days in the recruitment network, it's always been a conversation that's been happening in old communities. That closed network of communication is so important, but it's really starting to bubble to the top now. And I think it's a vital process, a marketing. I'm going to cut this bit out. Will cut this bit out, right? Yeah.
Will, don't cut this bit out. I want him to look like an ass.
Yeah. No, I think communities are the most important thing. I think when it comes to finding candidates, building a candidate pipeline, and actually getting the insights to make sure that the other marketing activity you do is on topic, is what they want to listen to, and it creates a bit of a self-fulfilling cycle. And I know this is something that you pushed quite heavily, and you were just really successful with at Austin Fraser. So I think the first question would be how do you think you should utilize communities in recruitment? And how, if someone is, I think most people are very keen to do it. If they don't know about it already, then I think this is a good time to have a quick chat about it, really. So I think the first question is how should they utilize communities?
Well, I mean, do you know what? Community is a bit of a buzzword, by the way. In fact, it's not a bit of one; it's a massive one. If you think about what recruiters are, or what makes a good recruiter is their network, right? A community is just a network when marketing got involved. Really, they just rebranded it and made it sound sexier. And so, don't get me wrong, I know the differences between the two, but communities have been around since the beginning of time. It's just how we're engaging with them now, because marketing has become more prevalent and technology has become an enabler, right? So how do I think? So all recruitment companies should have some sort of community strategy in place. I think it's such an easy way to fast track the growth of your company, right? So how do I think recruiters should do it? Well, I've seen it done really. I've seen it where huge budgets, getting people into physical locations, spending too much money on Domino's Pizza, no technology, someone speaking about something, everyone had a good time, but there was never any revenue attributed to it. So I've seen that side of things, lots of money spent, really little back, or if there was stuff back, we didn't know about it. We weren't able to track anything. So I've been on that side of the fence, and I've completely transitioned away from that to something that costs less and is way more engaging. I think a recruitment company needs two community strategies. I think one needs to be global. I call it global and local, right? So global is effectively owned by marketing. So marketing led. We need brand awareness. We need clients in these sectors. And so what your plan of attack is to build communities that will help us to do those two things. So an example would be, Austin Fraser have the Leaders in Tech podcast, right? Or events, should I say. That is, in every region, they've got Leaders in Tech. And Leaders in Tech is designed to get tech leaders into a room, give them value, or it could be a virtual room, give them value. And ultimately, there's a trade-off, a reciprocal trade-off, that we've given you tons of value. At some point, you're going to give us jobs. That is really the trade-off. But that's at a global level. So marketing tend to own it. Sales leaders get involved, but Leaders in Tech is a marketing-owned thing. What you then got is local communities. So a local community, so that if that community, a global community, is more client-focused, then I see a local community being or a micro community, if you want to call it that, being more candidate-focused. I am a consultant working in Reading, and I recruit Java developers. So my job is to make it my business to know every single great Java developer, chuck them into a room, get to know them, make sure that they know me, give them value, so that when the time's right, I've got a really, really thriving candidate pool of Java developers, and I can use them to put them into great businesses. That's it. That's what we did with Austin Fraser. And so, and both worked tremendously well. What we did have to do was empower the consultants, because beforehand, it was marketing and our community. We had 3 community managers within the business. Their job was to they were events. So they would put on big events and they would fill the room for consultants to go in and meet these people. They were used to marketing doing everything for them, and they just turned up for a slice of pizza and to talk to great people. But they weren't converting. What we did was educate them around personal brand, content creation, give them the tools in place to be able to create their own communities. And as a result, they skyrocketed. They had more candidates, deeper access for their clients. They had great personal brands. They were learning on the job. They became marketeers. And of course, you then got an army of marketeers growing your recruitment business for you, rather than having to think about how we scale a marketing team internally to do it for all of your consultants. So it was a completely real transition we had to go through, but worked tremendously well.
Perfect. So you touched on a little bit about return on investment tracking at these sort of live in-person events, and I completely agree with you. I think live events are probably actually the new way of doing lead generation, definitely in this market. I think things like podcasts and turning those audiences into communities, as the buzzword goes, or just stronger audiences. But yeah, no, it's definitely really difficult to just put on an event, but then actually trying to get the return on investment out of that and actually get the tracking done with that, with in-person events.
I think so. And actually, I'd be lying if I said that I'd done physical events well. Haven't really. And the reason I haven't is not because I can't, but it's more because of the timing of things. So if you can imagine, I took over the head of marketing role at Austin Fraser pre-COVID, and we dealt with communities during COVID. So we couldn't physically meet up anywhere. So we had to very, very, very quickly transition to what can we do virtually? And if we're going to do it virtually, we might as well empower the consultants to be able to do their own thing. How can we upskill consultants? And away we went. So Zoom became, a real successful tool within our business. And we taught our consultants to pick a theme for a meetup. We gave them templates so that they create their own invites and their own collateral. We educated them on Zoom and how to get people into a room and how to facilitate a conversation. And we showed them how to video it and send it to us so we could cut it up and use it as marketing collateral afterwards, something I know you guys do really well. So, it was fortunate for us that the timing, when I think most were struggling and wondering how the hell they were going to, run their communities, we saw it as a real advantage because we had the tech in-house anyway. It was just a quick upskill, and we adapted and we moved. And as a result, I think we took about 80% off of our community budget. But finally, for the first time ever, with the remaining 20% we were spending, we were seeing a huge return on investment. So it was very successful.
Yeah, perfect. And I think this is the crux of modern day demand generation marketing. I think getting the most out of these events that you do. So taking a videography team there to film the talks, getting a few expert speakers, cutting that content up into social media stuff that you can then hand to the consultants, all those extra bits, and then leveraging that further by, inviting some Slack group after and actually building a little bit of rapport between everyone and creating that, that kinship between people that people are really desperate to get now on social media, I think. And I think, like you said, when you go and you do your branding exercise and you've got that mission, then the ideas for the events and the difference that you'll make is genuine. And then it's actually, it comes easy, and you'll be able to, for example, the tech sector, the biggest topic at the moment is getting more diverse talent into there, whether it's women or people with different ethnicities and things like that. So actually being able to host events that do exactly that gets you so much more, people to come in there and have conversations. And it doesn't seem like a lousy marketing trick where you're just getting people to have a few beers and pizzas and get sold to. There's actually genuine value out the back of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. You've nailed it, by the way, is that community. You should be able to trace the reason you're doing the reason the community exists, the themes within that community, right back to mission, purpose, vision. That's what I mean about how important that is, because if we're not on a mission, how can we have a community that really resonates? The very purpose of a community is that we're giving back, we're doing something, we're inspiring change or something positive in the world. Well, what is it that we are doing? Well, it comes from back there. So that's why that was so important. And so, yeah, you could just do tech meetups if you want. But hey, when we did our research on this, we were told by some of the more senior candidates, I'm invited to 10 tech meetups a week. They're coming out my backside. I've got more than I know what to do with. The reason I come to yours is because there's a bit of purpose behind them. And we actually heard that quite a lot. That's when you know you've nailed it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Something you touched on just earlier was the term empowering consultants.
Yes.
And I know you talked a little bit about it, and I know that we've discussed it before with clients, and I think it's really powerful. For anyone that doesn't know, do you want to talk a little about what that means?
Hard work. Hard bloody work is what it means. Listen, I can only say this because I was one and am one, actually. That's not fair. I still am one. It's quite hard to get salespeople to do things they're not used to. The very definition of a salesperson is someone that has like honed their process, their skill set over time and knows what works, and they're in a flow, and that's why they do what they do, right? So when suddenly Mr. Marketing comes along and says, hey, you now need to record videos with your BD, or we want you to start developing your personal brand and pushing content because it's important. Wow, that is hard. And it is hard. And I would have been exactly the same. You get a lot of resistance, but actually we had to go on like an internal PR mission within Austin Fraser almost to educate on why we were getting them to do this and what the benefit of that would be to them. And so we were putting people into workshops, and we were talking to them about the importance of community and content creation and personal brand. And what we found is you will never get everyone to adopt a something or a new style or a new way of working. So here's what you do. You find some influencers within the business. And so what you do is you find 3 or 4 who are really receptive to new ways of working, who totally buy into what it is you're doing, and you use them as your guinea pigs, and you give them all of the tools, the training, anything they need to make this sort of mini campaign a success. And then what you do is when it is a success, you shout from the rooftops and everyone follows. And that's the way that we did it. And it worked incredibly well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've got a similar thing happening with our client, Nuco. Their team is really good with personal branding and sort of going out there and doing things. And we actually work with the sector. The sector teams have a very unique way of getting their commission. It's not individual focused, it's sector focused. So they're all like in mini competition, but it's all very friendly. And the content and media team obviously are the ones that are really pushing the envelope. And then they do something, and then the other sector teams come to us and say, we really liked what they did. Can we do that? And then I think if you've got the hybrid approach with an agency that can churn content around really quickly for you, make the most out of it with the ideas. And then the consultants also really keen on pushing marketing and actually having stuff out. That's the way that you can really push it. I think it's the education, like you said, but then holding their hands and giving them all the assets that they can need.
Oh, exactly
to post it
that.
out.
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. My old boss used to say to me when I was moaning at him saying I needed more heads in my team, he'd say, I could give you 5 more heads. They would all be busy. Because that's particularly in B2B marketing. It doesn't matter how many marketeers you've got in your team. You hire them, they'll be busy, they'll be used. And so the key to that, as I said, and we both agree on, I think, is this whole empowering consultants, is how far down the line can we get a consultant without the need for us, was the goal. Because if you look at it from a logistical problem, say we've been talking about Austin Fraser, so I'll continue, 200 consultants, right? There was 5 people in my marketing team. 5 people cannot, and the nuance with that is that each of those consultants are focusing on a specific skill set within a specific region. So again, you had someone recruiting only Java developers in Reading. That's what they're known for, their specificity. So how the hell can we market for 200 unique businesses within a business? It was never going to happen. So our approach had to be give them the tools and the knowledge to be able to do 90% of it themselves, and they only used us for the stuff that was impossible.
Yeah, I mean, you can use, a quick hack is you can use Canva, can't you, and create branded templates, and then they can just drop the assets in and run away with it.
Luckily, they're an Apple business, so they're all in Keynote, so we're creating. So I'm in my element, I'm back designing again and getting told off. But yeah, the same concept, Canva, Keynote, whatever it is that you want to use, having templates and an understanding of how you use them. Don't get me wrong, those templates got butchered. And we were forever putting people up and saying, you just can't put that logo on that. But listen, that's a good problem to have, because what you've suddenly got is you've been met with resistance. I don't want to design anything. To you're suddenly telling people off because they're designing, not quite to the standards that you expect. Well, hey, that's a good problem to have. There's an eagerness to actually want to do it, and that's half the battle. So yeah, much rather have that problem.
Absolutely. Perfect. So the next question I kind of want to ask, we've only got a few more, and then we've got a quick fire rounds that I think you've seen. What do you think the future holds for the recruitment industry and marketing in general?
I am still surprised to this day how many recruitment companies there are that haven't thought about their brand architecture, their reason for existing. They haven't looked at their identity. So I think in terms of industries, there's still an awful lot of improvement there. However, what do I think is the future of marketing within recruitment? I've firsthand been a part of a couple of projects where we introduced automations into the business. So the best recruitment companies are tech companies now. They're not standard recruitment companies. They have honed their database. They have tools within the business that are automating process, taking an awful lot of the legwork out of the consultant's day so they can focus on what they're great at. Automations in terms of communications to candidates and clients, to generate new business, to improve customer service. So, I'm not saying it's the future. I think it's already here, because I know there are several recruitment companies that do this very well. But I still think for some of the smaller to medium-sized companies, I think it's going to be a huge learning curve. But if you get it right, then I've seen exceptional growth off the back of it. So yeah, I'd go with sort of tech enablement and automation.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. And it's just once you get those processes in place, I mean, really, I kind of think it is an ongoing job, but once you've put in the bulk of the work, then it's going to make your life easier. And then you can start doing the cool stuff like the podcasting and the live events and the empowering the consultants and all things like that. But yeah, you just need to get that baseline tool enablement just to make sure that those labor intensive things shouldn't be really. They should be quick and easy to run. I'll give
you a real live example of this.
Yeah.
I know a company who added 15% onto their revenue, and they attributed this. So this is fact, because they created an automation in their business that sent an automated email to all contractors with a month left on their contract saying, are you looking for your next role?
Yeah. It's just
that how simple is that idea? Now, That's not rocket science. There will be plenty of companies that are doing that or have a process in place to do that. But what I'm saying is that's a company that implemented it, made loads of money off the back of it, because they stopped having candidates drop off. They were placing an awful lot of them because, there was an engagement there. They were ready, they're prime, and they were selling them back into people. Now, you times that's a micro example of an automation. You times that by 100 within the business, 200 small little examples of that, and imagine how streamlined your process can become. So that's why I think it's the future. And the reason I think it's the future is because not many people are doing it, and they're certainly not doing it well if they are. So and I've been part of projects that have really, really nailed that.
Yeah, people aren't thinking about the touch points, are they?
No.
And it's so important just to make sure that you're top of mind all the time, because you never know what can come from that, whether it's clients and candidates and contractors and all those bits.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what? A recruitment company will make money without a website, without a marketing team, without a CRM, to be honest. Recruitment started with a phone, and a person. And so they would. And I think that's the problem, is it takes an awful long time before recruitment companies realize, hey, this marketing thing, it's just like pouring petrol on a fire, and if you get it right, without a question, it's going to help you to scale your business. So automations are key, absolutely key. Having the right technology in place helps you scale, helps you keep on track of things, makes life easier for your consultants so that you can use them for what they're good at, and so on and so on.
Perfect. And the last big question, and I know it's just something that you've been recently doing, but shout out to the great guy Jack. Worked with him on some good stuff. But what's it like managing a remote team? What are some tips that you've learned, and some challenges along the way?
Oh God. I just feel like I've been remote for so long. It's normal. I think it would be more strange working in an office these days. What's it like managing a remote team? It's different for me because I've hired in remote. I've not had to revert from an office to remote, right? So yeah. It's like, well, that's how it's always been. I think technology is a huge enabler. I have about 5 different ways I can video call Jack. We have a daily huddle in the morning where we just jump on. Sometimes we'll just be working and not talking to each other, but we're still on video call. And after about 10 minutes, you realize he's still there and you'll say something and it becomes almost like you sat next to him. So yeah, I don't really have any tips for you on this one.
It sounds like communication.
It is communication.
Good communication, yeah.
Right, listen, do you know what the other thing is, actually, if I'm to speak candidly about it, is, so I hired Jack, unlimited holiday, totally flexible working, and no fixed working hours. That is in his contract. Yeah. So why have I done that? I've been part of companies that have done similar, and I've seen the benefits of it. Recruitment can be a bit archaic at times. Sales leaders wanting to crack the whip, desks of people, you must be here between set hours, making a set number of calls. That still exists, believe it or not, even in the year we're in now. But I'm a firm believer of hire great people and just trust them to do it their way. And I think if you do that, you don't need to worry about the small stuff. And so, yeah, hiring good people really helps, because I'm not having to worry about whether I need to keep them motivated or check in on them or, work out whether they're doing a good job. So that's the first thing. And then you nailed it. Communication. I'm always available. I'm on Slack. If I'm out the office, I'm on Slack on my phone. God, we've got Telegram, Slack, Google Hangouts, all sorts, Zoom. I'm about, you can get hold of me. And so, yeah, that's they're the 2 tips that I'd give you. But I feel like that's common sense, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm exactly the same with our team. It's the thing is, like, as long as the work gets done, do whatever the hell you like. Like, if you need to go to the vets or to the doctors, or you've got something that you want to do, you want to leave early on Friday, anything like that, go do it. Work comes second. And as long as the work gets done, it's that trust. Yeah, there's the trust both ways. I can trust you to do it. You trust me to be not a dick all the time. So
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And as a result, everyone gets on. Listen, people work differently. I was terrible at being boxed in. Having set hours, having to be in a room to have a meeting with someone, just to say that we were physically in a room. You're having to be in at a certain time. It's not really how my brain works. So you're not going to get the best out of me. I will do 2 hours work before my kids get up in the morning. And I might then go to the gym and just have a breather. And, I might have a bit of lunch and meet a mate, go for a walk. And then suddenly I'm back at it for the afternoon. But then you'll find me on my emails at 10 o'clock. Now, that's not for everyone. Most people do like the separation and do like the, don't want that sort of always on mentality. But for me, it works. But I'd have never got away with that in some of the jobs that I had. So, yeah, I just, from experience, giving people flexibility, making sure that you're always available for a chat if needed, constantly talking to Jack throughout the day, and like Louis, who I now work with as well. So it's like we're in the same room anyway, mate, to be honest. Just with the added bonus that I don't have to get on a train every day. Yeah,
that's it, isn't it? That's it. It's just the flexibility. It just makes it a lot better. And you can put your schedule around when you know that you've got the most productivity in that kind of thing. Right. So just to finish off, and then I'll let you go. I've kept you for long enough, Richard. Just some quick fire questions. I'm a massive lover of cereal. It's like my favorite food. So what is your favorite brand of cereal if you had to choose one?
Peanut butter on toast, by the way, is my favorite breakfast. So I would just hardly ever have cereal. But if I did have cereal, it would definitely be Cocoa Pops.
Yeah, Cocoa Pops are a good shout. Absolutely.
Absolutely banging.
And another thing that I'm really big on is productivity and sort of the methods. What's your top productivity tip, methodology? How do you stay productive?
Short sprints. Two things actually. So short sprints. So I only ever work for about half an hour at a time because I'm then itching to pick up my phone or do anything other than work. So I've got like a little timer. I just pop it on and I turn everything off. And for that 30 minutes, I promise to myself I'm not going to let my brain wander, but I promise myself that after that, I'm going to reward it by doing whatever. So that's one little thing, but that's a personal thing because controlling this brain is tough work. I also listen to, weirdly, some people don't like this, but I listen to music. I find that music helps channel me, but not any music. I listen to on Spotify lo-fi. So
I listen to lo-fi as well.
Lo-fi hip hop or lo-fi house.
Rain, the sound of rain. There's like rainmakers and stuff like that. That always helps me. Just that.
Someone told me today brown noise. Brown noise. You heard of brown noise? I mean, I've got baby
Yes.
and I know what white noise is. Brown noise sounds a bit weird, but apparently I was on YouTube earlier on looking at it. He recommended brown noise for the day. So I think, to be honest, mate, it's white noise. I don't know what the difference is. But anyway,
yeah, absolutely.
But something about listening to a song that isn't too invasive, I don't know, like it helps me get into a bit of a zone and I can just focus a lot more. So yeah, but I think that's quite a personal thing, really. Productivity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if there's too many lyrics, it just throws me off and you get too into it, don't you?
Yeah.
The next one, what's your favourite movie?
My favourite movie is the best movie of all time, Goodfellas.
Oh, what a shout. Yeah. That is a great movie.
But I mean, just everything about it is incredible.
Yeah, I love it. And what company does marketing the best?
What company does marketing the best? Do you know what? You sent me these beforehand and I have really struggled with it. Like, it's so easy to say things like Apple or like, I don't know, McDonald's. Do you
Nike
know
or whatever.
The company I've got a company that's more relevant to us. Because they're a UK-based company, and I think their marketing is bloody incredible. Well, from what I've seen, anyway. So have you seen I think it's a dating app, Thursday.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mate, yeah, they really do well, don't they?
Apparently, the guy who set that up is ex forces, and he set it up, no investment, nothing, just from scratch. But I see their marketing is really current and they're really good at getting the whole viral thing. But I also like their tone of voice and their adverts, and it's just really, really clever.
It's like guerrilla marketing, isn't it? It's that sort of old school on the street, doing cool things, and then using it to get viral content out. So I love. Yeah, great, great.
It's really, I really, really, really like them. I mean, you'll see their adverts if you're ever walking around London. It's very sort of on trend. Like, they're clearly like a young company. They clearly like totally get it. So yeah, I think they're absolutely great. Do you know what? I also I got a bit frustrated on LinkedIn the other day with this, but I don't know if you saw Hummel. Did you see, the shirt maker for Denmark? They're a Danish sports company, Hummel. They make football kits. Yeah. They recently launched the Danish kit for the World Cup, and it's effectively a stand against the Qatar World Cup and everything that's gone on over there. Ethically, they don't stand by it, so they've made the kits completely plain. Because they don't. Yeah. Anyway, you have to have a look at that. The reason it annoyed me is because I shared it and someone then started commenting underneath saying, calling me a racist basically, and saying that, but Denmark still have real racial problems. And listen, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was really
good. You get it, don't you? You get it.
You do get it because the problem with social media, of course, is that people tend to see the negativity and want to go there first. But what I saw was a company purpose-driven, making a statement, and doing something positive, and also great marketing as well. So I'm completely comfortable with the fact that that really works for them as a marketing campaign, because they're actually doing something positive, making a stand, and trying to make a point. So yeah, I thought that was a really nice campaign that I saw recently. But yeah, no, answer the question. I think Thursday at the moment, if you were to look at a company that just really gets their shit, it's them.
Perfect. And then the last question, if you could live anywhere else apart from the lovely UK, where else would you live?
Like everything, I really overthought this one. Everything about that question makes me want to say Australia, right? Because I think Australia are quite near to the UK in terms of culture. I've actually never been to Australia, so I can't say that. The place that I loved, that I would definitely live, is Austin in Texas. We had an Austin office at Austin Fraser, and I went over there a few times, and I just thought that place was absolutely brilliant. Amazing weather.
It's such a big tech hub now, isn't it?
It's huge tech hub, tons of investment, a little more liberal than some of the other Texan states. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. They love their music. The food is great. Everyone's up for a good time. Brilliant weather. Quite diverse in terms of like the city versus the outskirts. Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant place. So yeah, that'd be my choice.
Nice. Good choice. Good choice. Well, thank you, Richard. I really appreciate your time. If anyone wants to reach out to you, want to talk to you, where are you hanging out?
Oh God. Get me on LinkedIn. Normally that's the best place. Or you can check out my paintings on Instagram, actually, at Richard Williams Creations. They're on there. It depends.
Amazing. He does awesome commissions. You should definitely check him out. Yeah, awesome work.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Richard. Really appreciate it, mate.
No worries. Good chat.